right, lean in for a second. You know that clickbaity phrase we've all fallen for? What experts never say out loud. Your mind goes straight to some dark, juicy secret, right? Like something they'd only whisper in a back room. But hold up, stick with me for 30 seconds. Because the real tea is way different. It's not some scandal they're hiding. The thing is, they're just not spilling it because most of us are moving too fast, totally zoned out, to even see what's right in front of our faces. So, picture this. You're chilling in a doctor's office, or maybe you're on the couch in a therapist's room, or maybe you're just shooting the breeze with some brainiac, researcher who's been in the lab for like 30 years, totally geeking out on human behavior. You want to know what's really going on in their heads when a senior adult walks in? Forget the outdated nonsense. They aren't thinking, oh, here's another fragile old-timer who can't keep up. Heck no. That's a hard pass. The real thought flashing through their mind is, dang, this person is a total boss. Seriously. They see folks in their 70s, Gs and beyond who have been through the ringer, economic roller coasters, personal losses, tech revolutions that would make anyone's head spin, and they're still here, still showing up. Experts are low-key blown away by that kind of grit. They see a level of resilience that's just off the charts. It's not about being tough in a loud show-off way. It's a quiet, deep-rooted strength that comes from knowing a thing or two because you've seen a thing or two. They've got stories that would make your jaw drop in a perspective that can cut through all the BS in about 5 seconds. Flat, and get this, the experts are constantly surprised by the sharp wit and the killer sense of humor. You think your grandpa's jokes are just corny? Now that's decades of perfected timing and a wicked smart mind that knows exactly how to land a punchline. It's next-level cleverness wrapped in a chill, unassuming vibe. They've got this emotional strength too. They don't sweat the small stuff because they've already survived the big stuff. They've mastered the art of not giving a damn about things that don't truly matter. And let's be real, that's a superpower most of us are still trying to unlock, so this will surprise you. Not in a aliens landed kind of way, but in a why is everyone getting this so wrong way. You know, it's wild how our whole culture has this totally backwards idea about getting older. I mean, we're absolutely bombarded with this narrative, this script that aging is just one long, slow ride downhill. It's all about decline, losing a step, becoming irrelevant. That's the story we're sold from the jump. Every other commercial is about anti-aging cream or some pill to fix what's broken, and it creates this low-key anxiety that your best days are in the rear view. But let me tell you something. The pros who are actually in the room, the doctors, therapists, and scientists who are on the front lines talking to these absolute legends, every single day, they see a completely different picture. It's like they're watching a secret show that the rest of us have the wrong channel for. They aren't seeing a bunch of people falling apart. They're seeing folks who have leveled up in ways you can't even imagine. They see something raw, something real, and something so deeply meaningful it'll make you rethink everything. It's not just about surviving. It's about a kind of thriving that doesn't need anyone else's applause. It's honestly, legitimately pretty awesome. Think about it. This is the kind of truth that's just hiding in plain sight. It's not locked away in some vault. It's right there in the way your grandpa tells a story, in the sharp no BS advice your aunt gives you, in the calm that a retired neighbor has that you can't quite figure out. But most people are just too busy, too slammed with the daily grind, too focused on the noise to actually notice it. We're all scrolling, hustling and trying to keep up, and we miss the masterclass in life that's happening right next to us. It's the kind of wisdom you can't Google, you have to live it. And that's the kicker, most folks don't clock this, they don't truly get it, until they've put a few more miles on their own odometer, until they've been through their own stuff, had their own heartbreaks, celebrated their own comebacks. That's when the light bulb goes off. That's when you look back and realize, oh, that's what they were talking about. That's what that strength was. And that's the real secret. It's not a secret because it's forbidden, or because some expert would get in trouble for spilling the beans. It's not some hush-hush conspiracy. It's crazy, but the secret stays a secret for the simplest, most obvious reason in the world. We're all just straight up not paying attention. Our minds are elsewhere, man. We're scrolling through the endless void of our phones, doom-cycling through bad news, or stressing about a deadline that's still 2 weeks out. We're physically in the room, but our brains are in a dozen different places. And in that chaos, we're missing the main event. We're not listening, not really listening. We hear the words, sure, but we're not picking up what they're actually putting down. We don't catch the weight of the pause before they answer a question, the subtle shade in their dry wit, or the hard-earned truth buried in what sounds like a simple story about walking to school in the snow. It's like we have these filters over our ears, these preconceived notions that anything coming from someone with gray hair or a few wrinkles is automatically out of touch, less relevant, a relic from a bygone era. And that's our loss, a major one, because we're so stuck on this outdated, busted storyline that society fed us, the one that says aging is a tragedy, and youth is the only prize, that we're completely missing the epic, real-life heroes who are sitting right across the dinner table from us. I'm talking about your grandma who survived economies that would make us cry, your uncle who can fix anything with a paperclip and some determination, the neighbor who has buried friends, raised kids, and still finds a reason to laugh loudly and without reservation. These aren't fragile people waiting for the end. These are survivors, warriors and sages who have navigated a world without GPS and social media, and came out smarter and tougher for it. They've built a resilience you can't get from a self-help book or a motivational podcast. They are the living, breathing libraries of life hacks, hard lessons and unconditional love, and we're treating them like background noise. We're so busy chasing the new, the shiny, the next big thing, that we're ignoring the timeless treasures right in our own homes. It's like we've been watching a static-filled garbage channel our whole lives, convinced that's the only show on TV. But dude, it's time to change the channel. It's time to finally look up from our screens, lean in, and ask a real question. It's time to listen with the intent to understand, not just to reply. When we do that, the picture clears up. The sound becomes sharp and we can finally, truly see what's been there all along. It was never hidden. We just had our eyes closed. Let's get one thing straight, the real truth. The stuff you don't see in those crazy YouTube thumbnails with guys making shocked faces is that when professionals are behind closed doors talking about their older patients or clients, the vibe isn't anything like pity or annoyance or frustration. That's all for show. That's just clickbait nonsense designed to get you riled up. Nah, the real tone, the quiet one they use when the office door is shut and they're just being real, is straight up respect. And I'm not talking about the basic, polite yes sir kind of respect you give to anyone. I'm talking about a deep, genuine, holy cow kind of respect that's earned through decades of simply living a life. It's the kind of respect you have for a seasoned quarterback who has seen every defensive look in the book, or for a musician who doesn't just play the notes but feels the whole song. Most experts, if you corner them at a coffee machine and get them to drop the official jargon, will tell you off the record that senior adults are, hands down, some of the most complex, layered, and emotionally intelligent people they ever get to interact with. They aren't simple or one-dimensional. They're like a whole library in a single person. You've got layers upon layers of history, triumph, heartache, and wisdom all baked into one individual. Their emotional intelligence is on a different level. They can read a room in 5 seconds flat. They know when someone is full of it. And they have a radar for authenticity that would put most tech to shame. They don't have time for the drama or the posturing. They've been there, done that, and bought the t-shirt so long ago it's practically vintage. So forget the fake online narrative. The pros aren't frustrated. They're impressed. They aren't annoyed. They're learning. They're dealing with the real OGs, and they know it. They'll talk about the wisdom that comes from decades of surviving things that younger generations can't even imagine yet. Economic ups and downs, family changes, heartbreaks, joys, the rise and fall of trends, the shift of entire eras, and the unique flavor of resilience that comes from waking up every day determined to keep going, even when things get tough. That's something a textbook can't teach and a 30-year-old can't fake. So while the world gets caught up in the noise of youth obsession, experts see aging from the trenches. They see real people with stories, humor, stubbornness, strength, and a kind of clarity only time can carve. And let's be real. Society seriously underestimates older adults. People assume that aging automatically equals fading, shrinking, slowing down, losing purpose, or becoming invisible. But professional after professional will quietly tell you the opposite. They'll say older adults tend to be more thoughtful, more patient, more intentional, and ironically more grounded than most younger adults in the room. And that's because life does something to you over time. Not in a bad way, but in a refining way. You start letting go of nonsense. You stop worrying about impressing everyone around you. You stop forcing yourself into roles you never actually wanted. And you start understanding who you are at a core level, something most people don't figure out until much later in life. Experts notice that. They see the way a 75-year-old or an 80-year-old speaks with a kind of calm certainty that comes from having witnessed a lifetime of temporary problems that younger folks treat like the end of the world. One of the biggest things professionals never shout from the rooftops but often mention quietly in conversation is that older adults have an emotional strength that society overlooks because they're so used to seeing the physical changes of aging. People notice the slower walk, the changed posture, the white hair, the wrinkles, but they completely miss the emotional muscle underneath all that. And I mean real strength, not some Hallmark card version. Ask a therapist, and they'll tell you that older clients often understand loss and love in deeper, richer ways. You want to know what's up? Go ahead, ask a doctor, any doctor who's been in the game for a minute, and they'll tell you, straight up, no chaser, that older adults often have a level of bravery that can make younger patients look like they're just playing in the minor leagues. And it's not because they're inherently tougher. It's because they've already run the gauntlet. They've been through the ringer more times than they can count. We're talking about a lifetime of countless tests, scary phone calls from the lab, medical setbacks that would make anyone want to throw in the towel, slow and frustrating recoveries, and just difficult seasons of life that knock the wind out of you. They've sat in those same cold exam rooms. They've heard the medical jargon. They've faced down uncertainty so many times that it's just not the big, scary monster it used to be. That ain't just experience. That's a whole different level of courage that you can't fake. It's a quiet, steady kind of brave that comes from knowing, deep in your bones, that you've survived hard things before and you can damn well do it again. Now flip the script and go ask a researcher, someone who's spent decades with their nose in data and clinical studies, and they'll hit you with a different but just as mind-blowing perspective. They'll tell you that where older adults truly excel, where they absolutely dominate, is in the big picture stuff. They've got this crazy ability to see the whole forest, not just get lost staring at one tree. They're not sweating the small stuff because they've learned, often the hard way, what actually matters in the long run. And navigating emotions, please. They've had a lifetime to get to know their own emotional landscape. They can spot fear, jealousy, or genuine kindness from a mile away. They've mastered the art of not giving a damn about pointless drama, and instead, they find these profound, beautiful pockets of meaning in everyday life, in a perfect cup of coffee, in the way the light hits the garden in the afternoon, in a grandkid's laugh. And that right there is the real kicker. All of this, the bravery, the perspective, the emotional genius, these aren't weaknesses. That's the lie our youth-obsessed culture tries to sell you. This is the complete opposite. These are straight-up superpowers. They're cheat codes for life that you can't buy. You can't download and you can't rush. The only thing that can unlock this level of upgraded software is the one thing we all get at the same rate: time. It's the ultimate payoff for a life fully lived. And here's another thing the experts notice. Something they quietly admire but don't always make a big deal about. It's the way older adults have totally rewired their relationship with time. Seriously? Take a look at how most younger people operate. It's a nonstop grind of rushing. They're rushing to grow up, rushing to hit some arbitrary milestone of success, rushing to fix every single problem by yesterday, rushing to prove to the world that they've made it. It's a constant frantic race against a clock they feel is ticking down. But then you have senior adults, and it's like they've been let in on this massive secret that changes the whole game. They've got this unspoken, deep down understanding that time isn't some enemy you have to wrestle into submission, or a boss you have to beat before the clock runs out. No, it's something you learn to move with, to flow with, almost like a dance partner. You can't force the rhythm. You just have to feel it. And let me tell you, that single mindset shift changes absolutely everything. It's the secret sauce. It's why so many older folks carry this incredibly peaceful, steady presence around with them, even when they're dealing with challenges that would have the rest of us pulling our hair out. They've just learned through sheer miles on the journey that this constant frantic urgency we all feel, it's mostly unnecessary. It's a trap. They've seen the movie before, and they know how it ends. They know that half the stuff, we're having a full-blown panic. Attack over today won't even matter a week from now. It'll be forgotten, replaced by some new crisis. So they've given themselves permission to just take life one beat at a time, to actually sit with a cup of tea and not be scrolling, to have a conversation without glancing at a phone, to understand that some problems aren't for solving in a single, stressful afternoon, but for managing with patience and grace over the long haul. And the professionals, the therapists, the doctors, the nurses, they see this steady, grounded, unshakable mindset on full display. They watch their younger patients running themselves ragged with anxiety, trying to control the uncontrollable. And they can't help but think, man, if only they could borrow a little bit of that hard-earned calm from the person in the next room. They see that peace not as a sign of giving up, but as the ultimate form of strength, a superpower that only comes from having witnessed the seasons turn again and again, and knowing that the sun will still rise tomorrow. And let's just take a second to talk about personality, because this is the good stuff. The thing experts never actually say out loud in their official reports, but absolutely experience and secretly live for. When an older patient walks in, the simple fact that senior adults are often downright hilarious. I'm not just talking about a polite chuckle. I'm talking about a brand of comedy that can come out of nowhere and have you crying laughing. Sometimes it's completely intentional, a perfectly timed, bone-dry one-liner delivered with the skill of a stand-up veteran who's been workshopping their material for 70 years. They've seen every kind of person and situation, so their observational humor is so sharp it could cut glass. They'll point out the absurdity in something everyone else is taking too seriously and just drop the mic without even trying. And then other times the comedy is totally unintentional, which is almost better. It's that refreshing no-nonsense honesty that comes from a place of zero. They'll call something exactly what it is, using the most straightforward, old-school language possible, and the sheer bluntness of it is comedic gold. There's no spin, no corporate jargon, no walking on eggshells. It's just the truth, and the truth is often funnier than any crafted joke. And you know why this happens? It's because when you're young, you're walking through life with about 50 different filters on. You're constantly worried about sounding silly in the group chat, about offending someone with the wrong word, about coming across as basic or trying too hard or not trying hard enough. You're performing a version of yourself that you think the world wants to see. It's exhausting. But once you hit a certain age, it's like that whole system just glitches and shuts down. The filter loosens up. It might even fall off completely. And what's left is this incredibly sharp, witty, and unapologetically real person who has realized a fundamental truth. What other people think of you is none of your business. That liberation is where the magic happens. The jokes land harder because they're authentic. The stories are funnier because they don't have a polished, Instagram-ready filter on them. They've earned the right to say what they think. And that freedom is not just entertaining. For the rest of us to watch, it's a masterclass in how to live, without the weight of everyone else's opinion. It's a level of cool that you can't buy. Let's be real. The stories that doctors and nurses hear from their older patients are the kind of stuff you can't make up. I'm talking about wild, off-the-cuff jokes that come out of left field right in the middle of a serious checkup. The kind that are so unexpected and perfectly timed that the doc has to stop and just laugh for a second. They're getting these brutally honest confessions, like a patient casually admitting they fell because they were trying to rearrange the furniture by themselves at 2 a.m. No regrets. They get the most blunt, no-filter opinions on everything from hospital food to their own diagnosis, delivered with a kind of old-school charm and a twinkle in the eye that you can't help but respect. It's not disrespect. It's the opposite. It's a person who's seen it all, communicating on their own terms. And then you've got the therapists, man. They're sitting in their chairs, and the stories that unfold in that room, they're better than movie scripts. We're not talking about dull small talk. We're talking about epic tales of love and loss, of surviving wars, of starting over with nothing, of secret adventures and lifelong regrets, all shared with a rawness that you only get when someone has made their peace with the past. It's real unfiltered humanity, and it's powerful enough to give you chills. Meanwhile, the researchers, The scientists with their clipboards and data sets. They're listening to perspectives you literally cannot get from any other age group. They're not just collecting data points. They're tapping into a living library of 20th century history, of social change, of what it means to build a life without the internet, to maintain a marriage for 50 years, to find joy in simplicity. This isn't information you can Google. It's wisdom earned through decades of trial and error. And here's the kicker. The professionals, the doctors, the therapists, the researchers, they don't just tolerate this honesty. They genuinely appreciate it. They look forward to it. In a world of paperwork, rigid protocols, and rushed appointments, these interactions are a breath of fresh air. It cuts through the corporate nonsense and the bureaucratic red tape. It turns a routine 10-minute consultation into something human, something with meaning. It's the appointment they remember at the end of a long, draining day. It's the story they tell their spouse when they get home. Because in a job that can sometimes feel like you're just processing people on a conveyor belt, these moments of pure, unvarnished truth are what remind them why they got into the field in the first place. To connect with people, to hear their stories, and to be reminded of the incredible, messy, and profoundly memorable tapestry of a life fully lived. One of the biggest surprises experts talk about privately is how willing older adults are to adapt. People think older adults are stuck in their ways, allergic to change and locked into old habits. But professionals know better. They see people in their 70s learning new technology, people in their 80s starting new hobbies, people in their 90s changing their routines to improve their health or happiness. Sure, the learning curve might be different, but the willingness is there, and that willingness is something many younger adults don't have. Experts admire that. They see a kind of courage in starting fresh later in life, in relearning something and adjusting instead of giving up. Another truth that goes unspoken. Older adults have incredibly deep emotional intelligence. They don't always use the trendy words younger. People throw around terms like boundaries, self-regulation, or processing emotions, but they practice the real-world versions of those skills all the time. They know when to let something go. They know when to choose peace over pride. They know when someone's energy is not worth entertaining. And they understand, often better than anyone, that happiness isn't a destination, it's a practice. Experts see this emotional maturity every day, and it's one of the things they respect most. And then there's resilience, the kind nobody brags about but everyone notices. Older adults have survived illnesses, losses, career changes, economic downturns, family shifts, heartbreaks, rebuilding phases, and 1,000 things they never saw coming. And they did it without the internet giving them advice every 5 minutes. They lived through eras when problems weren't solved with Google, when people had to figure things out through grit, intuition, and support systems built from real relationships. Experts see that, and they'll often say, older adults have a kind of survival instinct that younger generations haven't developed yet, simply because they haven't lived long enough to need it. Another thing professionals quietly talk about is the depth of stories older adults carry. Not just stories about their own lives, but stories about entire communities, eras, cultures, and family lines. Sitting with a senior adult can feel like flipping through history, emotion, growth, and transformation all at once. Experts get access to these stories in a way most people never think about. They hear the heartbreaks that turned into breakthroughs, the mistakes that became lessons, and the moments that shaped entire decades. And professionals often say these conversations teach them more about humanity than any conference or research paper ever could. People also underestimate how introspective older adults become. Somewhere after 60, 70, 75, you start thinking about life with more depth, not in a dramatic, end-of-the-road way, but in a very human, reflective way. Experts see this reflection all the time. Older adults ask thoughtful questions, express gratitude more often, prioritize peace, and focus more on connection than achievement. They understand that relationships matter more than appearances, that memories are more valuable than money, and that living, well, is more important than living fast. And something that always comes up when talking to experts is how deeply older adults value presence. When they show up fully, no phones, no distractions, no multitasking, no half listening. Their attention is real. Their curiosity is real. Their concern is real, and that presence changes the energy in a room. Younger adults are constantly pulled in 100 directions, but older adults have mastered the art of being still, being intentional, being here. Professionals love that because it creates genuine connection, and connection is the thing that makes every job in the human field meaningful. Professionals also admire how senior adults deal with uncertainty. Younger people tend to panic when life throws a curveball, but older adults often sigh, nod, and say something like, "Well, here we go," because they've learned that uncertainty doesn't mean disaster, it just means change. They've lived through enough unexpected events to understand that nothing stays the same for long, and that adaptability is one of the most valuable skills a person can have. Experts never shout this from the rooftops, but in private, they talk about older adults as some of the calmest, most adaptable people in the room when life takes a turn. And here's something else older adults know: how to cherish the little things. They appreciate a quiet morning, a good conversation, a warm meal, a phone call, a familiar song, a soft breeze. They understand that joy isn't always loud or extravagant. Sometimes it's found in moments younger people rush past. Experts notice this shift and often say it's one of the most beautiful parts of aging, the ability to see value in simplicity. Professionals also talk about how older adults often show more compassion than younger generations. They've lived long enough to understand that everyone carries burdens. Everyone makes mistakes, and everyone is doing their best with what they have. They judge less, criticize less, and empathize more. That empathy shows up in conversations, decisions, interactions, and relationships. And experts admire that deeply, and maybe the biggest truth professionals never broadcast but quietly believe is this: aging is not a decline. It's a transformation. It's a shift from proving yourself to understanding yourself, from rushing to reflecting, from collecting things to collecting meaning. It's not the ending people fear, it's a new chapter people overlook. So when you see that phrase, "What experts never say out loud," don't imagine some dark secret. Imagine respect, admiration, real human appreciation. Because the truth about senior adults is far richer, deeper, and more inspiring than society gives them credit for. And if you really listen to professionals, they'll tell you that aging isn't something to fear, it's something to grow into. And this will surprise you, not because it's shocking, but because it's beautifully, quietly true.